Goradraganyagana gotragoloruhadam Goranga gudachama gopyada kolpa briksham Gopala gada ratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshikavaram satatam namami Nityanando avadutendo Vasudha pranavaha baha Janavijivita pahati Krishna prema prada prabhu Padmavati sutta shriman Sachinandana purvahaja Bhavon mato jagatrata Rakta Goda Kalevara Rakta Goda Kalevara Odajena Sukamadenu Divishad Rakshendu Chintamani Brindam Brahma Sukam Sundarataya Kandarpa Brindam Prabhum Vatsalyena Sumatridena Nichayam Vispardinam Nandinam Nityananda Maham Namami Satatam Premabdi Samvardinam Nityananda Maham Namami Satatam Premabdi Samvardinam. I always bow down to the very joyful Nityananda Prabhu, who expands the ocean of love of God. In terms of Odarjena, or mercy, he defeats the Kamadhenu cows, the wish-fulfilling cows. He defeats Indra, the god of rain. He defeats the moon. He defeats the touchstone. He defeats the happiness of Brahman. Brindam Brahma Sukam to Sundarataya Kandarpa Brindam Prabhum. His beauty defeats unlimited numbers of cupids. Vatsalyena Sumatridena Nichayam Vispardinam Nandinam. In terms of his affection defeats that of your mother and the cows. That's Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Padadvan Vam Yesham Hritani Kalaye Tesham Dasami Dasoham Prasidantu Surdaivahi. I'm the servant of the devotees, in whose hearts reside the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu. May they be pleased with me always. And that's our prayer. This is a prayer from 𝗘𝘀адц 𝗶𝗶 Swami. And our prayer is, we don't see Nityananda Prabhu separate from the devotees. In the same way that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he says that if someone tries to worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or any of the members of the Panchatattva separate from the devotees, separate from each other, they're just an illusion. And therefore, in Narahari Chakravarti Thakur's Bhakti Ratnakar, he's given a verse which he says comes from some older devotees. It's a Pratin Shlok, ancient verse. Nityananda Prabhu Vande Srimad Lakshmi Pati Priham Srimadva Sampradananda Vardhanam Bhakta Vatsalam. That I offer my vandana to Nityananda Prabhu, my prayers. He's Srimad Lakshmi Pati Priyam. He's very, very dear to Lakshmi Pati. That person, he Srimadva Sampradayananda, he's given so much ananda to the Madhva Sampradaya. He's Bhakta Vatsalam. Nityananda Prabhu is very, very loving to all the devotees. And this same verse is quoted by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in one purport in Chaitanya Bhagavat. And he says that some people listen to the succession of our line and have Nityananda Prabhu as a disciple of Madhavananda. And some say that he was a disciple of Lakshmipati Tirtha, which means that he was a godbrother of Madhavananda. So it's an interesting point that sometimes there's differences of opinion amongst our acharyas. And here's a nice example, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur just saying some people say this and some people say this. And you want to figure out which one is absolutely right. good luck. So I'd like to, first of all, sing a prayer to Nityananda Prabhu. This is something we printed previously in our 𝗘𝘀cznie𝗁𝗏 magazine, something we translated and printed there. The author's name is maybe anonymous. It gives his name as Krishnadas. It could be Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, as possible. Or it could be some other devotee named Krishnadas. There's a lot of devotees named Krishnadas. Or it could just be any devotee, because all devotees are Krishnadas. Jaya Jaya Nityananda Roy, Jaya Jaya Nityananda Roy, Aparada Papa Mor Tahara Nahika Or Udaraha Nija Karunaya, Jaya Jaya Nityananda Roy. So he's praying, Jaya Jaya, all glories to Nityananda Prabhu. He says, my dear Nitai, I have so many faults. Aparada Papa Mor Taha Nahika Ad. You please don't think about all my offenses, all my sins, all my paps, all my aparads. Udaraha Nija Karunayam, by your mercy, please deliver me, Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Nityananda Roy, Amara Ashatamati Tomara Nami Nahirati Kahite Nabasi Mukelaja, Janami Kuta Koriyachi Atmagata 𝗘𝘀취𝗁𝗶𝗶 Jaya Jaya Nityananda Roy. He says, Amara Asatamati. That my mati, my consciousness, or sometimes we may translate is my heart, my consciousness. Amara Asatamati. It's very, very sinful. It's asati. It's not sat. It's not transcendental. It's very mundane. Tomara nama nahi rati. And my heart, my consciousness is not attracted to your holy names. Kahite na bashim mukilaj. I don't, these kind of things, I'm not happy them even coming to my mouth. Just, my mouth is just full of shame. I have no laj, I have no shame. I'm so bad. Janame koto 𝗘𝘀취𝗁𝗏 atmagata. How many births have gone on janame koto, and during that time 𝗘𝘀취𝗁𝗏 atmagata, I've just killed myself. I've committed suicide and not made any spiritual advancement. 𝗘𝗶𝗏 𝗃𝗀𝗏 kaj. This is my kaj, this is my work, this is my situation. 𝗃𝗏𝗏, this is where I'm at right now. Jaya Jaya Nityananda Roy. Tumi O Karuna Sindhu Patake Janara Bandhu Evara Koroho Jaritya Patita Pavananam Nirmala Se Anupam Tahate Lagaye Bododhar. Jaya Jaya Nityananda Tumi O Karuna Sindhu. For those of you who know some Bengali, you may be confused why he's saying Tumi, why he's not saying Tomar. He's not saying it, he's not using apnar, he's not using a respectful address. He's saying Tumi. He's saying it in a very affectionate, intimate way, because you're the only hope that I have. You're close with me. Tumi O Karuna Sindhu. He's appealing to the heart of Nityananda Prabhu. My dear Nitai, you're Karuna Sindhu, you're the ocean of mercy. Pataki Janata Bandhu. And you're the greatest bandhu, the greatest friends of all those pataki janas, those very sinful persons. Ebara koroho jari tyag. Now, if, jari means if, ebara koroho tyag, you reject me, you give me up now because you see how fallen I am. Then how can we call you Patit Pavan? He says, Patit Pavan Nam, Nirmala Se Anupam. You're very famous. Your fame is spotless. It's Anupam, as being Patit Pavan, your name, that personality who delivers the fallen. But if you don't deliver me, then your position is Patit Pavan. Tahate Lagai Bododag. It's Bododag. It's just a great trick. Just something maybe for someone to get some Mahaprasad or something. Jaya Jaya Nityananda 𝗚𝗂𝗿-𝗹𝗶𝗹 koto koto aparadi 𝗏𝗏 Krishna dasa anumani tele tenari bebhumi jadi grina nakoro mane jaya jaya Nityananda. He says, 𝗚𝗏𝗿-𝗹𝗶𝗹. Previously, throughout history, how many terrible yavanas and offenders, kata kata aparadi, have you delivered? He says, Tada icha sunyachikani. I know, sunyachikani, I've heard with my own ears all about this. So Krishna Dasa Anumani, this Krishna Das, he's approaching you. If you don't hate me, then Jari Grina Nakoroho Mani. Please, please, don't push me away. This is a prayer of the poet Krishna Das. So we want to meditate something today about Nityananda Prabhu and his position. Sometimes it's said that more important than the answer is a question. A good question can be more important than a good answer. So it's described in many different places that Gour and Nitai, they're one. So then what is the role of Nitai in the Sankirtana movement? And since Jagannath Puri is a place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fulfilled his three desires to taste the mood of Radha, what is the role of Nityananda Prabhu in Jagannath Puri? Where is he? And three, since Gauranga Mahaprabhu is Krishna in the mood of Radha, what is the role of Nitai in this inner mood of Goura? Because Srimati Radharani, she becomes very shy when she comes around Balaram. So we should understand something about Nityananda Prabhu, and on this auspicious day, we should offer prayers to him and beg for his mercy. It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Sarva avatari Krishna Swayam Bhagavan Tanhara Dvitiya Deha Shri Balaram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Sarva avatari Krishna Swayam Bhagavan. That Krishna, he's Sarva avatari, he's the source of all avataris. He's Swayam Bhagavan. He's the original personality of Godhead. Tanhara Dvitiya Deha, Shri Balaram. And his second Dvitiya Deha, his second body, is Lord Balaram. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, he says, Lord Sri Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is the primeval Lord, the original form of Godhead, and his first expansion is Shri Balaram. The personality of Godhead can expand himself in innumerable forms. The forms that have unlimited potency are called samsa, and forms that have limited potencies, the living entities, are called vibhinamsa. 𝗥cie𝗹𝗶𝗶 bina matakai ajakai vyuha Krishna lila rasahai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. 𝗥cie𝗹𝗶𝗶. These two are actually one. They're one and the same persons. Bina Matakoi, they just differ. They have two different bodies, that's all. But Adyakai Vyuha, Krishna Lila Sahai. Balaram is his first expansion, Adyakai Vyuha of Krishna. And Krishna Lilara Sahai. Sahai means to assist or to help. That Lord Balaram, he assists Krishna in his pastimes. Prabhupada writes in his purport to this verse. Balaram is a Swank's expansion of the Lord, and therefore there's no difference in potency between Krishna and Balaram. The only difference is their bodily structure. As the first expansion of Godhead, Balaram is the chief deity amongst the first quadruple forms, and he's a foremost assistant of Sri Krishna in his transcendental activities. Yasyang Samsa Paramat Kilanam Posta Vishnu Bhati Dugdabdi Shahi Shoni Bharta Yat Kalasau Pyanantas Tam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye Tam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye Tam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye. Srila Prabhupada translates this. I offer my respectful obeisances under the feet of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, whose secondary part is the Vishnu lying in the ocean of milk. That 𝗘𝘀角_𝗁 Vishnu is the super soul of all living entities and the maintainer of all the universes. Seshanag is his further sub-part. So I'd like to begin, if the devotees will bless us, by speaking something about the childhood pastimes of Nityananda Prabhu. And again, what is our real purpose? How do we appreciate Nityananda Prabhu? Gopal Swami has told us, Nityananda Padadvanvam yesham 𝗘𝘀角𝗿𝗶 tesham dasanudasoham 𝗚𝗂𝗏𝗋. This is my conception of myself. What am I? I'm the servant, the das anudas, the servant of the devotees in whose hearts reside the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu. That's what I'm serving. Nityananda Prabhu is a very, very high, difficult text, but I want to approach the devotees of Nityananda Prabhu. And my prayer, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 sadaivahi, may they always be pleased with me. This is our spiritual life. And we want to get the blessings of the dear devotees of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. So, bearing that in mind, I'd like to discuss a little something from some kathas that I heard from my Guru Maharaj, Srimad Govinda Maharaj, and some kathas which we personally edited under his guidance and printed in a magazine, Sri Krishna Kathamrita magazine. So Guru Maharaj is speaking about how that Nityananda Prabhu is unlimited, and in his Bala Leela, his father was Hriday-Oja, his mother was Padmavati, and he appeared in the village of Ekachakra Gram. And many devotees like to go there. The last time I went to Ekachakra was in 1995. And it was to take pictures and do research for our Nityananda magazine. And I haven't gone there since then because I was so charmed by Ekachakra. It's such a wonderful place. And devotees recently have been encouraging me and telling me it's still a wonderful place. You have to go there. But when we were there was no electricity. There was no big speakers and music playing and different things. And it was just so very, very close to the heart. And then since then, I've heard that now they have electricity and they have some loud music sometimes and things. Anyway, a few years after Nityananda Prabhu appeared, my Guru Maharaj's guide, and this is according to the local tradition in Ekachakra, which as we were quoting earlier from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, gives that verse, that Prachin Shlok, an ancient verse he calls Prachin Shlok, which appears in Bhakti Ratnakar Narahari Chakravarti Thakur, which says that Lord Nityananda Prabhu was the disciple of, some people say, of Madhavananda Puri, and in that particular verse, it describes Nityananda Prabhu as being the disciple of Lakshmipati. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, some people say this way, some people say that way. So some people say means there's a local tradition, and we respect that. Mm-hmm. So according to the local tradition that our Guru spoke about, in Ekachakra Gram, Lord Nityananda had a younger brother, just as Balaram also has a younger brother. And that younger brother of Lord Nityananda, his name is Banka-Roy. And as they were growing up, those two brothers played together in Ekachakra village. And Banka means crooked, means something broken, means these three places crooked. And Roy means Radharani. So Banka-Roy, my grandmother explains, means Sham Sundar Tribanga Lalita, Krishna, and Roy, Radharani, mixed together. That means Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So Nityananda Prabhu, in Ekachakra, his younger brother was Gauranga Mahaprabhu in a form and in a name that we're generally not familiar with, which is Banka-Roy. And Guru Maharaj commented that one day these two brothers, they decided to go to Maheshwar. It was a village of their maternal uncle's father. And we later went to this particular place, this particular village. It's still there today, and there's some very special temple there. We had some artwork done of this particular pastime. And when Banka-Roy and Nityananda Prabhu went there to that village, there was a jungle, and they were getting ready to enter into the jungle, and some local people told them, hey, don't go there. But Nityananda Prabhu didn't pay attention to them. They said, no, don't, this is very dangerous. There's a giant cobra inside that jungle. But Nityananda Prabhu, he's an antasesh. He's not afraid of any snakes or anything. He went ahead inside. And as they were going, they found this giant cobra staying underneath a tamal tree. And that cobra raised his hood and started hissing at them. And Nityananda Prabhu wasn't at all disturbed. He just raised his hand and said, hey, Boka, you stupid rascal, Badmash, stay there. Who are you? Why are you causing so much problems to everybody? Why are you eating human beings and animals and things? So because he's an antasesh with Nityananda Prabhu, when he said stop, the snake stopped. And Nityananda Prabhu asked him, why are you terrorizing everyone? You're the original terrorist here in West Bengal. And so then that snake told him, he said, actually, I've been here since Dwapara Yuga, and I'll tell you my story. That previously the Pancha Pandavas, they stayed in the village of Ekachakra. And just as a note of interest, I found there's two different villages of Ekachakra where the Pandavas are supposed to have stayed. One is in West Bengal and the other is in Braj. And both could be correct. While we're being very broad-minded, in some different Divya Yuga, it could be either one. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta considered that in this Divya Yuga, the Pandavas are staying in this Ekachakra in West Bengal. So Duryodhana, he caused so many problems to the Pandavas. He built this house of lac. He invited the Pandavas to stay there. He wanted to burn them to ashes, but Krishna protected them and they were able to escape. So then for some time, they disguised themselves as Brahmins and they wandered about and no one knew who they were. And at that time, along with their mother, Draupadi, along with their mother, Kunti Devi, they came to that village of Ekachakra, and they were staying with Kunti in the house of a poor Brahmin there, whose name was 𝗏𝗏𝗹𝗏. And the Mahabharata mentions something about this, that the Pandavas were staying at this place near Ekachakra, which is today called Pandavatala. And Vyasadeva came and met the Pandavas there, and he told them that you should stay here in the house of 𝗏𝗏𝗹𝗏 Brahmin. And 𝗏𝗏𝗹𝗏 he was a very, very poor Brahmin. He barely had enough. He had a daughter and a son, a wife. There were 4 members of their household. He barely had enough to live himself. But still, he was taking half of whatever money, whatever wealth he had every day and giving that to the Pandavas. And to maintain his family, he was going out and begging alms every day. He was so poor, he didn't have anything. Around that time, there was a great demon named 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃, not the same 𝗏𝗏𝗃 that Krishna killed in Braj, another rascal demon. And this 𝗏𝗏𝗃 was coming and he was terrorizing everyone in the village. And he would go there and he would eat the villagers. And so they worked out some arrangement with him that, look, rather than you just attacking us and terrorizing us, and some days you don't get your lunch because we escape, and other days you do, just we'll give you, every day we'll give you 1 human being for your lunch, Hare Krishna, and we'll give you a cart of food. And so then you won't have any trouble getting your meal, and we won't be terrified about you attacking us, attacking our animals. You get this cart of food, and you get to have the bullocks which are pulling that cart. So that was a very big village, and all the different residents in the village, they would take, each of them would alternate days. And so they had so many different people were there in the village. It was very, very big. One time in many, many years, someone would have to go from their family. And every day there was a schedule worked out. A drummer who would go to the village and he would beat on the drum and say, today is someone from such and such household has to go to feed 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃. So while the Pandavas were staying there in that house of Vedasara Brahman, 4 of them were going out every day to collect alms. And the 5th one would stay back to protect their mother because they're devotees of their mother, Kunti Devi. So one day, Bhimasena was staying back with his mother. And it just so happened on that day, the drummer came, beat on his drum and said, tomorrow is the day of Vedashrava Brahman for 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃. He has to go to 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃. And so when that Brahmin and his wife heard about that, they were in big anxiety. They didn't have anything in their house, so how can they feed that demon? So somehow the Brahmin managed to get something from doing madhukari, doing begging. And his wife also went to her father's home. She collected something. So they had enough to make a whole cart of food, cakes for that 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃. But then they have to send him some person along also for 𝗏𝗏𝗃 to eat. So there's 4 persons in the family, the Brahmin, his wife, a 10-year-old son whose name is Vidyadhara, and their 8-year-old daughter whose name is Bhanumati. And the Brahmin, the father said, so I'm going to go. And when he heard that, his son, his 10-year-old son, Vidyadhara, started crying. He said, no, father, I'll go. Why should you go? And when everybody else heard it, they all started crying. How our 10-year-old son will go, this is terrible. And so everybody was crying there and arguing who's going to go. And when Kunti Devi heard them crying, it melted her heart. She's a very soft-hearted person. She went to her and asked him, what happened? Why are you all crying? And so they told her everything. And Kunti Devi said, hey, you've been so kind to us. We're part of your family. You've treated us like that. You only have 1 son. I have 5 sons. I'll send one of my sons. I'll send Bhimasena to them. So Kunti, she knew how strong Bhimasena was. And how Bhim could easily kill the demon. But Vedasara Brahman, he said, no, how is it possible? No, we can't. She said, no, you don't understand my son. She said, when he was a little baby, I was breastfeeding him. And some demon came and I became startled and I dropped him. I was sitting on top of a very tall hill, very high hill, very steep hill. And the baby, when I dropped him, he started rolling down the hill. And I was horrified and I was running after my poor baby and the baby was bouncing and rolling down the hill. And finally the baby smashed into a big rock. The baby's head hit the rock and the rock was smashed to dust. And then when I reached, the baby was just laying there laughing and giggling. That's my Bhima Singh, even as a little baby. So you've helped us. We were in a very difficult situation. So now it's our chance. We want to help you. So, and Bhima Singh, when he heard about this, he said, this is very good. I'll get to eat everything on the cart. Because Bhima Singh, one of his names is Brikada. He's as hungry as a wolf. And finally, I'm going to get enough to eat. I haven't had enough to eat. They arranged for 5,120 mounds of cooked rice. So 1 mound of rice equals 82 pounds. So 5,120 mounds of rice would be 419,984 pounds of rice. Bhima was very, very happy. And there was 1 cartload of this cake I mentioned called Manda Pitta. And there was a buffalo pulling the cart and 1 human being. And Bhima saying, it's very, very good. Finally, I get enough rice. I get this Manda Pitta, I can kill this. And I get to have some fun. I get to kill this demon. Very good day. So he rode on that cart and he was eating all the cakes as he was going along. And as he was going in that cart, Bhima Singh was calling out, hey, Dushta Rakshasa, stupid rascal Rakshasa, you come out, where are you? And 𝗏𝗂𝗁 heard someone calling his name and calling him stupid, badmash, Dushta, a very rascal person, who's calling me names like this? And he comes out and he said, hey, this guy's eating all my food. So 𝗏𝗂𝗁 became furious. And he uprooted a big tree and ran at it and threw it at Bhima Singh. And then he picked up a big tree and threw it back. So Bhima was very, very happy. He's been staying in the house of this Brahmin, just doing Madhukari and staying with his mother, and everything's kind of boring. Bhima likes to fight. So now he gets to have a good fight with this demon. So finally, Bhima killed the demon. And then he was getting ready to go back to his mother. He thought, well, actually, there's still a lot of food left here in the cart. There's 419,000 pounds of rice. And Bhima Singh ate all of that, and the cakes and things, and then he started to go back. In the meantime, while Bhima was gone, Arjuna came back from doing his Madhukar, and he saw that Bhima wasn't there. Now, all the Pandavas, they're devotees of their mother. They love Kunti Devi like anything. And he said, Mata, where's my brother Bhima? And Kunti Devi told him everything, how there was some proclamation given that from the house of Vedasar Brahman, they would have to give some human being to feed 𝗏𝗂𝗁, and how they were all crying, how the young boy wanted to go ahead and do that. And the father was arguing with him. And then I came and said, no, I have 5 sons. And so I volunteered that Bhima could go. And Arjuna was horrified. He said, what have you done? There's only 5 of us we have to fight on behalf of Yudhishthira. His 4 brothers were to fight on behalf of Yudhishthira, our 5th brother, oldest brother. And now you're jeopardizing everything. And Kunti said, look, I know Bhima. He's my boy. And right now, I'm quite sure that demon's already dead. And Arjuna said, well, I don't know. He may be having some trouble fighting with him. I should go there and help him. You stay here, and I'll go to help Bhima. And so Arjuna started following the tracks of the cart, very deep tracks, because it was a very heavy cart. And he's going up that hill. And then Arjuna started thinking, it's going to take so long to get there. Bhima's in great trouble. What can I do? So he decided that he would shoot a Naga Pasha Astra, or a snake arrow. And so he took that snake from his quiver, and he told the snake, you go there and you tie up this demon 𝗏𝗂𝗁. And then he shot the arrow, and Arjuna went there to help Bhima. On the way, he met Bhima. Bhima was very, very happy. He was just finishing his lunch. And he heard from him that Bhima Singh had already killed that demon. So then Arjuna told Bhima, you should go back to mother. But I've sent this Naga Pasha Astra, this cobra arrow, this cobra may be moving around somewhere. He may hurt someone, he may bite somebody, may eat somebody. So I'm going to go and I'm going to straighten him out. So you go back to mother. So Bhim went back to mother, and Arjun went there and he found that snake. And he told the snake, so you stay here under this tamal tree. And the cobra said, okay, you're the boss. I'll stay here. But how am I going to survive? How am I going to eat? What should I, you should make some arrangement to feed me. And Arjun told him that you don't go away from this tree. And if by chance someone comes to you, you can eat them. If some animal comes or some person comes, that can be your lunch. But otherwise, you don't go out, don't bother anyone. And so the cobra was telling all this to Nitai. And he says, so since Dwapara Yuga, I've been following Arjun's instructions like that. And then Nitai told him, don't do this anymore. You're killing so many innocent people and human beings and animals. This is not good. You stay here in this hole and don't come out. And that cobra said, but how am I going to survive? What am I going to eat? And Nityananda Prabhu then said, so people will come. So they'll come and worship you. They'll offer so much food. So Nityananda Prabhu stayed there inside that hole. We went there to that village. Nityananda Prabhu said that Nitai has one earring. And he took off, because of this story, he took off one of his earrings, therefore he only has one left. And he put that earring over the top of that hole, covering it. And you go there today, there's a huge stone over that hole, which they'll show you in that small temple, which they say was the earring of Nityananda Prabhu. And maybe that earring grew, I don't know. And so anyway, from that day, Nityananda Prabhu was famous. He only has one earring, Ekakundala, not two. And that place is still there today. It's known as Kundalatala. And as I mentioned, we went there. We didn't get to see a cobra, but we saw the villagers are regularly going there. They're leaving rice and they're putting milk and things down in that place. So Banka-Roy is a very mysterious kind of tattva. According to the local tradition, on one occasion, Nityananda Prabhu, he was walking about in Ekachakra, and the place known as 𝗘𝘀角𝗿, he found this deity form of Krishna called Banka-Roy. And Nityananda Prabhu, at that time, he decided, I'm going to Vrindavan. And there's a wonderful series of stories about, at least one story, about Nityananda Prabhu's visit to Vrindavan, which we printed in our first issue of Krishna Katami, the Bindu magazine, from a rare little-known book called 𝗵𝗵𝗵, which is written by a devotee named Tilak Ramdas. Tilak Ramdas was a disciple of Abhiram Thakur, and his guru, Abhiram Thakur, told him, you should write this book about me. And in the beginning, there's a wonderful story about Nitai Vrindavan. I'm not going to go there now with this. There's too many things to try to tell. This Katha today. We did so many stories about Nityananda Prabhu and so many tattvas. It would take us many, many days. But Nitai was going to Vrindavan that day. And then he discovered this deity of Krishna, Banka-Roy, in the clay of 𝗘𝘀角𝗿, 𝗘𝘀角𝗿. And he smiled, he thought in his mind, I was going to Braj, but Braj has come to me. Vrindavan's come to me in the form of Krishna. But then he was thinking, still, I'll go to Braj, and then when I return, then I'll install the deity for the great ceremony thing. So he wrapped Banka-Roy up in a silk cloth, and he stuck him in a hole in a neem tree. And he thought that he'd pick him up on the way back. But somehow or other, when Nitai returned from Vrindavan, Braj, he came by a different route, so he wasn't able to pick up Banka-Roy from that neem tree. So when he returned to Ekachakra, Banka-Roy immediately appeared to Nityananda Prabhu in his dream and told him, look, you left me there in that tree. I'm really hungry. This is not good. You should take care of me. You're going to install me. So Banka-Roy told him, I want some nice opulent food. I want a nice opulent installation ceremony. And Nityananda Prabhu told him, look, I'm really tired. I just walked all this way back from Vrindavan. I can't do it just now. So you decide what you want, and then I'll do it. I'll go along with that. So then Banka-Roy, he told Nityananda Prabhu, okay, that if you can't come to me, then I'll come to you. you're too tired to come and see me. So tomorrow morning, you'll find me floating down the Jamuna River in the same neem tree that you hid me in. We went to that place. Did we go there also, 𝗘𝘀cie𝗁𝗿? You know? No, I don't think so. But in 1995, I went to Ekachakra. And there's what they call the Jamuna Rivers there. It's a place where Nityananda Prabhu found Banka-Roy for the second time. And so Banka-Roy told Nitai that you go down there and you'll find me, and then I want you to install me very nicely. So the next morning, Nitai took his bath, and he went to that place, and he saw that neem tree floating down the river. So he took the deity out, and he brought him back to his home, and he worshipped Banka-Roy very opulent with his own hands. And Banka-Roy had so much opulent paraphernalia and things. Until the end of his pastime, said in Nityananda Prabhu, they considered that he worshipped Banka-Roy. So it's considered in our line that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disappeared into 𝗃𝗀𝗏, and Nityananda Prabhu disappeared into the deity of Banka-Roy. But there's other stories they tell also that Banka-Roy, like sometimes the deities perform some different pastimes, that prior to Banka-Roy acting like a deity, Banka-Roy was the younger son of Nitai, of 𝗏𝗏𝗏, and 𝗏𝗏𝗏. And our Guru Maharaj tells a story that on one occasion, Banka-Roy was taking care of cultivating the land because that was their program there. They had a big plot of land, and they were growing rice and different things. And there was a big patch of land that Hriday Pandit, he'd gotten a number of different laborers to clear the weeds from. And the laborers had been working from morning until midday, and still they hadn't finished their work. So at that time, Banka-Roy came and told them, look, it's noon. You guys must all be hungry. You go home, have your meal, and you come back later on. And so they all left. And then Banka-Roy personally went and uprooted all the weeds. He cleared the whole plot of land. And he put all the weeds into a big mound. And so then when the coolies came back, they saw that this small boy Banka-Roy had done all that by himself. And so they went to Hriday Pandit and they said, Panditji, your son Banka-Roy, by himself, he took all the weeds out of that big plot of land. He put them in this big mound. So you should all come and see it. And so then when 𝗏𝗏𝗏 and all the villagers came to see what was going on, Banka-Roy saw the villagers and his father coming, and he hid himself, and they couldn't find him anymore. And at that time, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 heard that her son had disappeared. She came running and was crying, and everybody was crying and searching for Banka-Roy. And then there was an Akashvani. And Banka-Roy told all of them that you won't see me again, but coming up on the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 Tithi, I'll be coming down in this tree. This is the tree that Nitai put Banka-Roy in before he found that deity. He put him in the tree. It's a younger brother of Nitai. And so on that 𝗏𝗏𝗏 day, Nityananda, that's the day he went there, and all the villagers went there. And Nitai picked him up, and that's the deity of Banka-Roy. That's the deity that they consider that Nityananda Prabhu entered into. Now, our Guru Maharaj said an interesting thing when he told these stories about Nityananda Prabhu, and he told many, many different stories, which we printed in our third issue of 𝗘𝘀cie_𝗁𝗏 magazine. I'm not going to tell so many more of them, but one story that he told, which later one very senior Vaishnava who was very kind to me, Fakir Mohan Prabhu, Pujapad Fakir Mohan Prabhu, asked me about. I didn't really have an answer, but now many years later I have an answer I could give to Fakir Mohan Prabhu. That on one occasion we know from Chaitanya Bhagavat, we'll go ahead and sing those verses, it's described, Daive eka dina eka sannyasi sundar, ahalena Nityananda janakera gar, Nityananda pitatani 𝗏𝗃𝗁𝗏, Rakilena Padama Ananda Yukahan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Daiva Ekadin. One day, Ekadin, by some divine arrangement, Sannyasi Sundar, a very beautiful sannyasi came to the home of Nityananda Prabhu's father. And 𝗘𝘀𝗿𝗶 Pitatani Bhiksha Koraya, he offered some alms and hospitality to that Brahmin. And our Guru Maharaj described that sannyasi was actually Vishvarup, the elder brother of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Vishvarup is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Tabi putra janamila Vishvarupa nam Mahagunavantena Baladeva dam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The Jagannath Misha, Tavi Putra Janamila Vishwarupanam. Jagannath Misha, he got a son named Vishwarup. He was Mahagunavantena, very powerful, very, very qualified, because Baladeva Dham, he was the incarnation of Lord Balaram. So our Guru Maharaj mentioned that according to the tradition in Ekachakra Gram, that sannyasi who came to 𝗘𝘀𝗿𝗶, who 𝗘𝘀𝗿𝗶 offered so much hospitality to, that sannyasi was actually Vishwarup. And if you think about it, it makes some sense. Because you can't separate Nitai from Gauranga. So in Nityananda's pastimes in Ekachakra, Gauranga Mahaprabhu was also there in the form of Banka-Roy. Banka, who means Krishna, and Roy, who means Radha. The combined form was Gauranga Mahaprabhu. But his pastimes weren't so significant there. They were short. Because he's also appeared in the form of Gauranga Mahaprabhu in Navadvip. And similarly, in Navadvip, Balaram has appeared as Vishwarup. But his pastimes also were not so significant. We don't hear so much about Vishwarup because we hear more about Nityananda Prabhu. So that Vishwarup, after taking sannyas, our Guru Maharaj said that it was he who went to 𝗘𝘀𝗿𝗶. He took the sannyas named 𝗏𝗏𝗏, and he went to Ekachakra, and he was staying with 𝗘𝘀𝗿𝗶. And 𝗘𝘀𝗿𝗶 every day was bringing food and serving that sannyasi. And sometimes Nityananda Prabhu was serving him and massaging his feet and different things. And that 𝗏𝗏𝗏 Vishwarup was looking at Nityananda Prabhu again and again. And one day, he was very attached to that boy. And one day he was thinking, I should leave this place and go somewhere else. And so then he called for 𝗘𝘀𝗿𝗶 and he said, look, I have something to ask for you. I'm a sannyasi. I'm asking for some bhiksha. You should give me whatever I want. And 𝗘𝘀𝗿𝗶 said, very good. Whatever you ask. You're a sannyasi. I'm a grihastha. I should serve you. The sannyasi told him then, he said that I'm going out to visit many holy places. What I want is not food. I want your eldest son, Nityananda. And when 𝗘𝘀𝗿𝗶 heard that, he thought, my God, what is he asking for? I only have one son left. How can I let Nityananda go? He's our life. So he went to 𝗏𝗏𝗏. He told his wife, the sannyasi is begging, our son, what can I do? What do you say? And 𝗏𝗏𝗏 was a very chaste and devoted wife. She told her husband, my dear Pati, whatever you do, I have no objection. I'll follow it. And at that time, 𝗘𝘀𝗿𝗶, he remembered the Ramayana and how Vishwamitra came to Dasarath and begged for his two sons, Ram and Lakshman. And he thought to himself, now this son's begging from Nityananda, and although Dasarath was unwilling, still he gave his sons. So the same thing is happening to me. My chaste wife, 𝗏𝗏𝗏, she's giving permission because how can I give the son away without asking his mother for permission? She's giving me her permission to do what I want. So what can I do? I have to give him. And so he gave Nityananda Prabhu to him. And then 𝗏𝗏𝗏 took Nityananda Prabhu with him on parikrama. And so many different things happened. When Vishwarup went to Pandharpur in 1510 AD, he left his body And our acharyas described that he entered into the body of Nityananda Prabhu, because they were there together. So many years ago, Fakir Mohan Prabhu, after we printed this magazine, excuse me, Pandharpur, yeah. Many years ago, Fakir Mohan Prabhu asked me, he said that, do you have any pramana to support this? And I said, well, my Guru Maharaj says it. And he said, no, he chastised me, gave me a very beautiful teaching. He said, it's not enough just to quote your guru. You should quote Shastra, you should quote some literature. And I told him, I don't know. But since then, I've had the good fortune to come in contact with the Bhaktamala. And there's a number of different Bhaktamalas. Bhaktamala is kind of a genre of literature. Not all of them are appreciated by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but there's one particular Bhaktamala which is composed by a devotee named Nabhadas. And there's some commentaries on it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati were very fond of it. In fact, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, I found something in one of the Sajjana Toshini magazines where they gave a list of recommended reading for devotees who are going to take they had something like Bhakti Shastri. For devotees who are taking who are doing Bhakti Shastra, a list of recommended books to read. And one of them was the Bhaktamala of Nabhadas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur also quotes the book in his autobiography. So in the Bhaktamala of Nabhadas, it says that Shankararanya Puri, Vishwarup, that personality, he was a sannyasi who came to the house of Hridaya Oja. So, Fakir Mohan Prabhu, if you're listening somewhere, somehow, finally I have a good answer for you because I didn't have a proper answer for him before. So many, many wonderful pastimes of Nityananda Prabhu. Why is it that Nityananda Prabhu, we hear very little pastimes about him here in Jagannath Puri? When Madhavananda Thakur and Ancha-lila, he explains very clearly that the three desires, Shiradaya Pranaya Mahima Kidisovanayaya, with the 6th verse in the Adi Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, first chapter, describing the three different desires that Krishna has, that those three desires were fulfilled here in Jagannath Puri and not elsewhere. So Nityananda Prabhu, he's Hena Balaram. He's Balaram, and he's coming to fulfill the desire of the Lord, to help with the desire of the Lord. So why is it that he has practically no pastimes here in Jagannath Puri? I know of some pastimes at 𝗘𝘀角𝗿. We read in the Chaitanya Bhagavad something about that, in Chaitanya Mangal, something about Nityananda Prabhu at 𝗘𝘀角𝗿 temple, a little something. But what you read, it might have been 1 or 2 days or something. We read a little something about him coming with the devotees during a time of Ratha Yatra. And there's one local tradition in the Janjapita Mat here in Jagannath Puri, which I won't go into now. There's a deity there of Radhakant who was established by Narottam Thakur. And there's some pastime of Nityananda Prabhu there. But it's a small pastime. I can tell that story. That Narottam Thakur once, when he came to Jagannath Puri, he was walking with a group of disciples. And suddenly they came to a jungle place, which is not so far away from the Jagannath Mandir today, actually. And suddenly, Narottam Thakur became mad, and he started rolling on the ground and crying in ecstasy and smearing the dust of that place all over his head. And the devotees, they said, Guru Maharaj, what is it about this place? And Narottam Thakur told them, he said, here in this place, Nityananda Prabhu did kirtan with a group of small children. And the ecstasy that he experienced in that kirtan was the greatest ecstasy that he ever experienced in any kirtan. So this is a very sacred. Maybe that somebody's not muted. If the devotees could please mute yourself, it'd be a little better. Thank you. So at that time, there was one disciple of Narottam Thakur there. His name was Sevadas. And Sevadas, he folded his hands. He said, Guru Maharaj, could I have your permission to stay here? And Narottam said, yes. In fact, Narottam sent one of his deities, which were established by him, Radhakant, to that place. And those deities are still there today. And Sarvadrik Prabhu, when you come to Jagannath Puri, we'll very happily take you. But we're just waiting for you. to come. I will very happily take you there and some other places if you like, and a good wife. So that place is called 𝗘𝘀ጽ𝗁𝗵 because Sevadas was a fanatical Hare Krishna devotee, and he got up every day for Mangal Arti at 4 o'clock, and he had a pair of junjas, wampas, and he was a fanatical Hare Krishna, so he would go around, he'd circumambulate the Jagannath Mandir with the junjas, boom, 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 Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, like this, and drive everybody crazy. So they called that place 𝗘𝘀ጽ𝗁𝗵. So that place is in connection with Nityananda Prabhu. Tota Gopinath has a little connection with Nityananda Prabhu. But we only, aside from Rath Yatra, we only know of one other place in connection with Nityananda Prabhu, and that's actually on the outskirts of Jagannath Puri. As you come to Jagannath Puri, there's both a greater and outer boundary of Sri Kshetra, and that's the outer boundary begins with Bhubaneswar. And the guardian of that Dham is Lingaraj. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that's a whole nother discussion. He said that Lingaraj is Hariharas, half Lord Shiva and half Lord Vishnu, just as Gopishwar Mahadev is, and that Harihara is actually Gopishwar Mahadev. And he offered prayers to him like that, and that's a whole nother discussion. That's the outer boundary of Sri Kshetra. But the inner boundary begins at the Bhargavi River in a small village called Chandanpur. And there's a place there, many of you have heard of probably, called Dandabanga. And some of our, my godbrother, Sachinandan Prabhu, they acquired that property. It's a long story about that place. And they have, they established a beautiful temple there, and there's a group of devotees there to this day, worshiping the deities of Radha Krishna and Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra, and Gaur and Tai. So it was at that place that Nityananda Prabhu, he broke the danda of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Vrindavan Das Thakur says that this is Parama Gambhira Leela, that this is a very, very deep pastime. And he doesn't really explain so much of it. Why does Nityananda Prabhu break Mahaprabhu's danda at that time, at that place? I have a few thoughts that I'd like to share with you about this, and I can't say that these are things that I've directly read, but these are things that I've heard from my Guru Maharaj indirectly, or from other Vaishnavas, or from different Gaudiya literature, that Sri Kshetra is the place of Srimati Radharani. Sri means Sarva Amsini Radhika, that the place of Srimati Radharani, where all of her amsas, her expansions come from. And that place is known as Sri Kshetra. And so when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Krishna wants to enter into that place to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani, he's coming with a danda. And the danda means Vanashram Dharma. And Nityananda Prabhu can't tolerate that because the mood of Srimati Radharani is much, much higher than any Vanashram Dharma. So indirectly to tell Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that if you're going to enter into Jagannath Puri, if you're going to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani, you have to give up this Vanashram Dharma. It has no place for what you want to taste. And so he broke Mahaprabhu's danda. And it's interesting, there's a pastime which many devotees are not so familiar with. In the Madhya Leela chapter 5 of Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur describes that one day in Mayapur at Srivas Anga, that Nityananda Prabhu was there, and he became very, very ecstatic. And he was meditating on the pastimes of Krishna, and Vrindavan Das Thakur describes the situation. Shani hasik, shani kande, shani digambar, 𝗘𝗀𝗵𝗋 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Shani hase, one moment, Nityananda Prabhu started laughing and laughing, and then Shani Kande, the next moment, he started crying and crying. And then Shani Digambar, the next moment, he takes all of his clothes off and he starts running around naked. 𝗘𝗀𝗵𝗋. His body, his whole 𝗏𝗂𝗿, his whole body was just filled with the mood of being a small child. And then Vrindavan Thakur says an interesting thing. Kotai takila danda kota kamandalu, kota vabasana gela nahi adi mula. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Kotai takila danda. Where was his danda? Where was the danda of Nityananda Prabhu? Kota kamandalu. Where was his water pot? Kota bhavasana gela. Where were his clothes? Nahi adimula. Nothing stayed with him. And Nityananda Prabhu became very, very mad and restless. At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pacified him. But still, Nityananda Prabhu was very, very agitated. And Mahaprabhu told him, Stiraha, you be calm. And tomorrow, Kali Puji Bade Chahad Vyas. Tomorrow, you should worship Vyasadeva. And then Mahaprabhu went home. And Nityananda Prabhu stayed there in the house of Srivas Thakur. And in that house of Srivas Thakur, Kato Ratre Nityananda Hunka Koreyani Danda Kamandalu Feli La Bandiya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. There, Katau Ratre, at that night, Nityananda Hunkar. Hunkar means when someone starts calling out very loudly, they're roaring. Nityananda Prabhu started roaring very loudly, and at that time, Danda Kamandalu Felila Bhangiya. Nityananda Prabhu broke his danda and the kamandala. Jebujai Ishvarera Charitra Akanda Keni Bangi Lena Nija Kamandalu Danda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Vrindavan Thakur, he says, who can understand the charit, the pastimes of the Supreme Lord? Why? Bangilena Nija Kamandalu Danda. Why did he break his danda and Kamandalu? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives a long purport establishing for common people, he quotes a verse, Shruti Smriti Purana, the Pancharata Vidyamina, that we should very carefully follow Shastra. And it's not that, he writes his purport, it's not that we should think, oh, because Nityananda Prabhu, he gave up the principles of sannyas. And Nityananda Prabhu is a very controversial thing. I remember speaking to one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, I won't go into that so much, but about Nityananda Prabhu. Who was it? Krishna. It was in when I was with Pradosh, and we were doing research on our Bhagavatam magazine. We went to Naimisharanya, and the Acharya there, his name, it's the only time I ever got to meet him. Anyway, maybe his name will come to me in a moment. And I mentioned something to him about Nityananda Prabhu and his wives, and he became unhappy about that. And I can see there's some controversy because it's accepted that Nitai has two wives, Janava and Vasudha, but at the same time, it's also described that Nityananda Prabhu is a sannyasi. I don't want to go into that very much. Just to say that both descriptions are given, and that Nityananda Prabhu, he was some kind of sannyasi, but he broke his danda, broke his kamandala, and then he married. How do we understand that? We respect Nityananda Prabhu. We'll just say that very, very simply. And we don't accept that his marriage is anything mundane. We can't imitate the marriage of Nityananda Prabhu. I'll say that much. I don't want to go any further into it. But I find it very, very interesting. If we want to try to understand the mood of Nityananda Prabhu, Jagannath Puri, And it's important because we hear that it's here in Jagannath Puri that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he fulfilled his 3 desires. And Nityananda Prabhu, when he was coming here, Nityananda Prabhu broke Mahaprabhu's danda. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, in this 5th chapter that I'm reading from, a few verses later, it's described that Ramai Pandit, the brother of Srivas Thakur, he came there the next morning and he saw the broken danda in Kamandalu, and he told Srivas Pandit, and Srivas told him, you should go and tell Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so he went to Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu came there and he found Nityananda Prabhu, Bhaya Nahi Nityananda Hasina Putra. He found Nityananda Prabhu completely in internal consciousness, completely unaware of anything external, and just laughing and laughing and laughing. And then it said, Danda Loilina Prabhu, Shihasti Tuliya, that with his own hands, hasta means with the hands, Mahaprabhu picked up that broken danda, and they went to the Ganga together. Chalilena Ganga Snan Nityananda Lina. The 2 of them went to take bath. And at that time, Srivasadi Sabai Chalila Ganga Snan, Srivas Thakur and other devotees also came there. And Danda Tulilena Prabhu Gangaya Apani. Mahaprabhu threw Nityananda Prabhu's danda into the Ganga. The interesting thing, isn't it? So if we want to understand the Danda Banga Leela in Jagannath Puri, maybe we should start with Navadvip Leela. And if we want to give some purport to the place and the reason of the danda being broken there on the bank of the Bhargavi River here at Chandanpur in Jagannath Puri, then we should also look for some purport of the place and the circumstance where Nityananda Prabhu's danda was broken. Now, where was it broken? It was broken at Srivas Anga. According to Srila Thakur Bhakti Vinod, what is Srivas Anga in Braj? What is it in Navadvip? There's so many different tirtha styles which are non-different from places in Braj. Krishna Kun's got it. Please appreciate it. Srivas Anga is a rasa style. And so Nityananda Prabhu, he's going there, and it said he's breaking that danda. What time does he break that danda? It says kato ratre. The word ratre is used. It means in the middle of the night. And what goes on at Srivas Anga in the middle of the night? That's when Mahaprabhu was doing his kirtan, which is non-different from the Rasa Leela. And so Nityananda Prabhu, he broke his danda Kamandala because that has no place. Again, that Vanashram Dharma symbols, they have no place in that Rasa Leela. And that same Rasa Leela is taking place here in Jagannath Puri in the Gambhira, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wanting to taste and understand the mood of Srimati Radharani, is hearing from Radharani's 2 most intimate Sakhis, Lalita and Vishakha. And that's also non-different from the Rasa Leela. So Nityananda Prabhu is telling him that if you want to enter into that Rasa Leela in Jagannath Puri, then you can't go there with your danda. And one of the main pastimes we find of Nityananda Prabhu here in Jagannath Puri is that Mahaprabhu tells him, you can't stay here. You have to go away. Now you may ask at this point, someone who's a little perceptive, and may say, well, why is it that if Nityananda Prabhu is entering into Srivas Anga, the Rasa Leela there, why can't he enter over here? And this is a question sometimes devotees give us about the difference between Jagannath Puri and Navadvip. And we know Sachi Mata, she very famously describes it, Nilachala Navadvip Jayadurigar, that these 2 places, Navadvip Dham and Jagannath Puri Dham, are 2 rooms in the same house. Jayadurigar, 2 rooms in the same house. They're non-different. But still there's some difference, because one is on the bank of the ocean, the other is on the bank of the Ganga. There's some difference. One is in West Bengal, another is in Orissa. I heard from one senior sadhu, a very learned sadhu in Braj many years ago, that Sri Krishna performs Rasa Leela in different places. We offer this pranam mantra to Gopishwar, to Sri Gopinath, Shiman Rasa Visadam Bivam Sivata Tatastita Karshan Venaswana Gopi Gopinatha Shri Vishnunaha. That Krishna performed the Ras Leela at Vamsivat. And we know from the Bhagavatam that Srimati Radharani became annoyed for some reason. And that's a very, very deep subject matter. Why Radharani became angry. She left the Ras Leela. And Krishna then, because Radharani is Rasa Biharini, if there's no Radharani, she's a heroine of the Ras Leela. If there's no Radharani, there's no Ras Leela. Krishna left the Ras Leela and went searching for her. Why was Radharani angry? Some of our acharyas have described, because that particular Ras Leela, and there's different Ras Leelas. Later there's another Ras Leela at the place known as 𝗘𝘀адц, not far from Govardhan. We did some katha about the same subject matter some years ago there. Maybe we should do that katha on Tuesday. Anyway, we're supposed to do some Braj Katha at 9 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday morning instead of our regular Bhagavatam Katha. 7:30 Krishna Princess. Okay. So anyway, as a second Ras Leela later on at 𝗘𝘀адц, what is the difference between that Ras Leela at 𝗘𝘀адц and the Ras Leela at Vamsivat? What is the necessity of a second Ras Leela? The first Ras Leela technically is called Panchayati Ras. And what is a Panchayat? Anyone who comes from a village in India, they know the phrase Panchayat. The Panchayat means that place where everybody goes to discuss the matters of the village. In one sense, you could say that Panchayat refers to like an open house. It's Panchayat. Panchayat means five. Panch means five. So all five directions, not from the ground, all five directions, that place is open. Anybody can come, anybody can say anything. And in that Ras Leela at Vamsivat are present the Sadhana-siddha gopis and Munichari gopis, Risichari gopis. According to Garga Samhita, even there were some gopis who fell in love. They were fish in their previous life. And when Matsya Avatar came, they fell in love with him. They said, man, you are the hunkiest fish. We're in love with you. We have to marry you. And he said, no, no, no. My business in this incarnation is to save the Vedas. But if you want to marry me, I'll give you a benediction. You can take birth as gopis. Maybe they were little fishy gopis, but they were gopis in Braj Leela, and so many gopis. That's Panchayati Ras at Vamsivat. But later on, there's a second Ras Leela at 𝗘𝘀адц, and that Ras Leela is 𝗡𝗶𝗏. We say Videshi 𝗡𝗶𝗏. Foreigners not allowed inside. Only intimate devotees. It's just a Ras Leela for the Ashtasakhis and the Ashtamanjaris. So if we say that Srivas Anga is a Rasastali, which Rasastali is it? Is it like 𝗘𝘀адц, or is it like Vamsivat? Well, to answer that question, we should consider and look carefully at who's taking part in that nocturnal kirtans at Srivas Anga. Who's coming there? Whose house is it? Well, first of all, it's Narad Muni's house. Narad Muni has come as Srivas Thakur. So that's pretty open house. And not only is Narad Muni there, but also Advaitacharya is coming. Advaitacharya is Sadashiva Mahavishnu. And not only is Sadashiva Mahavishnu coming, but also Lord Brahma is coming in the form of Haridas Thakur. And not only is Lord Brahma coming to that Ras Leela in the form of Haridas Thakur, but also Sachimata is also coming. It's a Maha Panchayati Ras. Even it's open for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mother. So then the second Ras Leela, we can say in Gour Leela, which takes place in Jagannath Puri, at the Gambhira, who's present for that? That is a small intimate function. And it's just Lalita and Vishaka in the form of Sri Damodar and Roy Ramananda. And therefore, Nityananda Prabhu, he was able to enter into that Rasastali in Srivas Anga because also Mahaprabhu's mother is entering, and Lord Brahma is entering, and Lord Shiva is entering, and so many different personalities are entering. Narad Muni's house is there. So many personalities entering. But when he comes to Jagannath Puri, this is the ekantic mood of Srimati Radharani. And therefore, this is part of the secret of Mahaprabhu's Sannyas Leela. That Mahaprabhu Krishna, he describes in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasyatmika buddhi eke hakuru nandana bahusaka hinantasya buddhiya vyavasaina, that to be on this path, you have to be one-pointed. But Mahaprabhu in Mayapur and Navadvip, he's not one-pointed. He's multi-pointed. He's reciprocating with so many different devotees, with Mukunda, with Gadadhar, with Sachimata, with Vishnu Priya, with so many different devotees. And so to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani, he also has to become a kantak. And to become a kantak, he has to take sannyas, because that sannyas means Radha Bhav. But there's an internal and external aspect of that sannyas. And the external aspect means the symbols of that sannyas. And that has no place in Jagannath Puri. That has no place in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So Nityananda Prabhu breaks those things before he comes in. Now, finally, I have one topic I'd like to touch on a little bit. It's another very big topic, but it's something also many devotees are not so aware of, although it's spoken about directly and indirectly by our different acharyas. And that is, how do we understand the position of Nitai if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nai Anya, if Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha and Krishna, and he's come to worship that personality, Rasanandi Radha Sadasa 𝗡𝗶𝗶 Sukho, who is Jagannath. In the language of my Guru Maharaj, Jagannath is Radha Viraha Vidura Rup, or the embodiment of separation from Radha. He's Krishna on the inside, he's Radha on the inside and Krishna on the outside. Therefore, Rasanandi Radha Sadasa 𝗡𝗶𝗶 Sukho Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatune. He's a combined form. He's Radharani on the inside and Krishna on the outside, and he has an amazing meeting with Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna on the inside but Radharani on the outside. That's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then what role does Nityananda Prabhu have in all of this? Well, as Balaram, Radharani becomes very shy around Balaram, and she doesn't go there. And therefore, that's one reason, perhaps, why Mahaprabhu told Nitai that you go away. You don't stay here in Jagannath Puri. You should go and you should preach. But there's something else about Nityananda Prabhu. It's described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat in Madhya Lila chapter 12. Nityananda prasade se hoy Vishnu bhakti Janiha Krishnera Nityananda Purna Shakti Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. That just by the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, Nityananda Prasada, say hoy Vishnu Bhakti, you can get bhakti to the Lord. Jani He Krishnera, you should know, Jani He, that Nityananda Prabhu, Krishnera Nityananda Purna Shakti, he's the full potency of Krishna. He's not half a potency, Ardha Shakti, but he's Purna Shakti. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments on this verse. He says that in his form as the younger sister of Radharani, Sri Nityananda Prabhu nourishes conjugal mouths. And he says that is why Sri Thakur Narottama said, Hey no Nitai Bine by Radha Krishna Paiti Nai Judakori Dikdar Nitai Pai. That unless you take shelter of the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu, you cannot approach Radha Krishna. But if Nityananda Prabhu is just Balaram, then how can we approach Radha Krishna through Nityananda Prabhu? In a lecture Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave on Radhastami in the Gaudiya Mutt Temple in Ottadanga in Kolkata, which is the first place Srila Prabhupada met him, he says that even Sri Ananga Manjari is always eager to serve Srimati Radhika. This Ananga Manjari is none other than the goddess form of Sri Nityananda or Sri Baladev Prabhu. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says a similar thing. It was collected in his Bhaktivinoda Vani Vaibhav. He says, Sri Nityananda Prabhu married Sri Janava and her elder sister Srimati Vasudha Devi, who had all good qualities. And Janava Devi later accepted as her son. She adopted Ramachandra, the grandson of 𝗏𝗶𝗹 and the son of Chaitanya, Sri Chaitanya, another devotee met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And she gave him initiation. Then he says, the many wonderful activities performed by Sri Janava Devi, who is the energy of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and is non-different from Ananga Manjari, are almost unknown to Vaishnava society. In the Gour Ganesh Deepika, text 66, it said, 𝗘𝘀់_છી Devim Kalav Api Vivin Vate Ananga Manjarim 𝗘𝘀់_janavim cha prachakshate ubayam tu sanichinam 𝗡𝗶𝗴 satam natam. That some people say that Ananga Manjari became Vasudha. Others say that she became Janavi. These are the two wives of Nityananda Prabhu. And 𝗏𝗶𝗏 says that it's the opinion of the devotees that both are Ananga Manjari, according to the previous logic. He says that we have that 𝗡𝗶𝗴, this previous logic. In other words, an eternal associate can manifest in different personalities. It's also sometimes said that 𝗏𝗂𝗶 Goswami is Ananga Manjari, as well as Guna Manjari. In the Gauragana Swarup Tattva Chandrika by Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, Vishwanath writes, Ananga Manjari ya Siddhrada Prana Swarupini Adhyasa Janavi Namni Nityananda Priyotama. That Ananga Manjari, who is very, very dear to Nityananda, who was just as dear to his life as Radharani, that Ananga Manjari, who is a younger sister of Srimati Radharani, has become Nityananda Prabhu's beloved wife, Janavi. So that's the Shakti of Nityananda Prabhu, that Ananga Manjari. And some Vaishnavas, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, in some conversations also describes that just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha Krishna, so also Nityananda Prabhu is a combined form. Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha and Krishna. It's a little controversial with some Vaishnavas. Some of the Vaishnavas in the line of Advaita Charya, they protest. They say, how can you say that he's Radha and Krishna together, because they don't like this idea of merging or something. But we don't have a problem with that, because we say that Radha Bhava Dhyuti Subalitam Yami Krishna Swarupam. Chaitanya Charitamrita says that he's Krishna Swarup, but he has the mood and the complexion of Srimati Radharani. And we consider that this is just semantic. This is just an unnecessary quarrel, because there's no difference between the mood of Radharani and Radharani. There's no difference between the complexion of Radharani and Radharani. So Krishna has adopted those things. That is Srimati Radharani. And I'll leave that to higher Vaishnavas and myself to argue about. If we want to try to say that how Shri Radha and Krishna come together as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's a very, very deep subject. But in any case, there's different Gaudiya literatures, there's different statements from our acharyas speaking about how Nityananda was also a combined incarnation. And he's Balaram, and he's also the younger sister of Ananga Manjari, who's the Shakti of Balaram. And those two combined together are Nityananda Prabhu. And so then we can understand that as Ananga Manjari, and that Shakti of Ananga Manjari, we can approach Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can approach Sri Radha Krishna. And therefore Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments in this way, that this Ananga Manjari is the goddess form of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, or Sri Baladev. Or again, in his purport in Chaitanya Bhagavad, we're just reading, that in his form as a younger sister of Radharani, Sri Nityananda Prabhu nourishes conjugal mellows. So Nityananda Prabhu also does that. So this answers something of our questions. It gives a little something about Nityananda Prabhu. I wanted to speak a little something about this today for the devotees in South Africa. I thought, well, if we're going to say something about on this day, since tomorrow is Nityananda Chaturdashi, and since we're not having a big festival here in our ashram, we have to get ready to go to Mayapur in a couple of days. I thought it would be appropriate if we said something today about it. Bana Biharni, Hare Krishna, you're here. And Jai Gour, I presume also. And, so I want to stop there. Many of you don't know 𝗏𝗏𝗏 who's present here. You can see him, his cameras on. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 is living in Mayapur. He's a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, our old dear friend and well-wisher also. I'm sorry, please. I just, as a matter of etiquette from my heart, I feel obliged to say something about you. Please forgive me. Otherwise, it's very inappropriate that I'm speaking something in front of you. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 was the head pujari when I first met him, I think, in Denver. And he served in many different roles in different places. Also, we were together with you in Spanish Fork when you were in charge of the center there in different places. He's doing so many different services. And now he's living in Mayapur with his good wife. And I'm very, very blessed that you're coming and giving your ashirvad to us today. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, do you want to add anything? Any comments?
I can say that many of my godbrothers, by initiation, I'm senior to you, but many of my godbrothers, as well as myself, are coming to hear from you, Prabhu. So all the devotees should know that also.
Fakir Mohan Prabhu sometimes would ask me to say things, even Gour Maharaj sometimes. Once I remember I asked him something about, I don't remember what the question was, and he said, I don't know. And he turned to me and said, do you know? And I became very confused. Gour Maharaj, and I understood at that point that sometimes we may serve even our Gurudev by speaking something in front of them, just like 𝗏𝗏𝗏, I don't know if you ever spoke in front of Srila Prabhupada, but many of your godbrothers and god sisters too, sometimes like Jamuna and others, spoke in front of Prabhupada in his order. We may do like that, but I always want to remember my position and always be very, very grateful for all the wonderful things you've done for us, you and your godbrothers. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Actually, anyway, Prabhupada's disciples cleared the forest of Maya. We cut through the forest. Devotees like you were building on the cleared space.
I'm just trying to carry, I'm just the water boy, trying to carry something from my Gour Maharaj, who's your godbrother. My Gour Maharaj, 𝗏𝗏𝗏, also hosted him several times in Denver and other places, and they had a very, very sweet relationship together. So anyway, when I see you, Prabhuji, I'm sorry, I just remember my Gour Maharaj. And you may say so many things to me, I can't argue with you, but I just remember my Gour Maharaj, and my Gour Maharaj would not be happy with me if I didn't treat you with proper respect. That's all I can say. Hare Krishna. Any thoughts, any reflections from you about Nityananda Prabhu, or any of the things we're repeating today? Some controversial things also.
Controversial is the nature of life in the material world. Everyone has it. It's the nature of the spiritual world also. The gopis don't agree with the cowherd boys. They're heartbroken when Krishna leaves Braj and goes to play and herd cows. And the cowherd boys are brokenhearted when they return. So there's controversy, there's different points of view in the spiritual world. But Krishna is the center. That's the difference between the material world and the spiritual world. Here we argue. Krishna is not always the center.
Yeah, I think we do argue, even amongst senior Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Even sometimes Srila Prabhupada also chastised some of his own godbrothers or disagreed with them, and what to speak of his disciples. But in terms of rasa, as you're intimating, we should be very, very accommodating. I think, and Prabhupada said, we spoke about unity and diversity. And I personally think that when we want to stress about the argument side, which is there, and we have our debates and things also, but I see that more as a kind of an ashram dharma side of things, which is a bona fide consideration. But it's not so much a consideration of our bhajan. Sometimes in terms of Siddhanta, we have to protect young people and say something. But at other times we see even amongst our acharyas, sometimes they say different things. Sometimes some people say that Nityananda Prabhu is a disciple of 𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗶, some say he's a disciple of Madhavananda Puri, and some stress that Nityananda Prabhu is a sannyasi, renunciate, and Bhaktivinoda and Govinda Depika both mention how Nityananda Prabhu was married to Vasudha and Janava. So we can accommodate all of that. But it gives us a headache if we want to try to insist that only one can be correct.
Yeah. Both sides can be right. Both sides can be right also.
Yeah. But to understand that, we need to take shelter and guidance from older devotees too. Because otherwise, if we just sentimentally pick something out and think, I like this thing, and Nityananda-Prabhu, he took sannyas, but then he got married, so I can also do like that. That's a dangerous thing.
How can both sides be correct?
How can both sides be correct?
Like in general, we say that in different Divya Yugas, it happens in
Sometimes we
ways.
say in different Divya Yugas it's there, but I would suggest that Nityananda-Prabhu, just as it said that Krishna Nitya Brahmachari,
yeah.
in the Vedas it said that Krishna is always a brahmachari. But how is Krishna always a brahmachari? He's dancing with so many gopis. He's a brahmachari in the sense that he's always situated. Brahmachari, the word brahmachari, Brahman, achari iti brahmachari. The word brahmachari means someone whose achar, whose behavior is situated in Brahman. And Krishna, he has no lust. Therefore, he's Krishna Nitya Brahmachari. And Nityananda-Prabhu, he's always a sannyasi. He's always renounced. Whether it seems like he's married or he's not married. I would offer that as one answer, and there may be other answers too. Would you have any thoughts on that, Sarvajit Prabhu? How to reconcile these two things, Nityananda's marriage and his sannyas?
Well, about Krishna, Krishna is Supreme Brahman. How is he's the Supreme Brahmachari also?
Yeah.
About Lord Nityananda, first verse, 6th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, Ashritya karma phalam karyam karma karoti. Who is a sannyasi? That definition is given also. It has nothing to do with danda and the particular way of tying a dhoti or coloring it. It's what is your relationship with food.
Yes. Yeah, and therefore we have Danda Banga Leela also, with both Nitai and with Gauranga Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually what we do, Sarvajit Prabhu, in these sessions, we ask devotees to give some reflections. I like going around, it's just a very healthy thing for everybody. Do you want to add anything else, Sarvajit Prabhu?
Actually, I have a phone call to make, so I'll have to excuse myself, but I wanted to thank you very much for your beautiful katha. Hope to hear from you again soon.
I hope we see you in Mayapur. Again, our program there, if anybody's listening, will probably start right after Bhagavatam class. We'll have a procession from the temple to my Guru Maharaj's Samadhi, and then we'll have a Kirtan Guru Puja there, and then from there we'll go to the Mayapur community hall. And so we'll start there, I don't know, sometime between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, something like that, usually. So anytime you want to come, we'll have prasadam too for but we have coupons, so you have to come, please.
Okay, I must come. I'll spend the rest of my life lamenting that I didn't spend more time with your Guru Maharaj. Such an extraordinary devotee.
A few years ago, we had three of your godbrothers, Sannyasi godbrothers, who wanted to come to Puri. And they embarrassed me because they told me that we want you to speak all the kathas and take us around, and we don't want to speak anything, we just want to hear from you for like a week. And I did that as a service for them. It was uncomfortable because I'm a very junior person who's a sannyasi. It's very uncomfortable, but we were friends and I was okay, kind of. And then on Nityananda-katha, actually, in our ashram, we had a program and I asked all of them to speak, and they all expressed why they did that. And it reminds me something of yourself. And what they told me was that my Guru Maharaj previously had invited all of them to come to Bhubaneswar, and they never got a chance to come. And they really wanted to come and they wanted to hear something. So they thought, anyway, we'll go. And that's why they asked me, you please repeat what you've heard from your Guru Maharaj about Puri. So it actually made me very emotional. I started crying at that time because it was really a heavy thing for me to speak in front of these senior devotees that I have a lot of love and affection for. And it broke me up because it made me realize that I'm trying to represent Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, what would he want? He would want me to take care of his godbrothers and treat them with so much love and so much respect because that's what he would want. And he can't be here, so we have to try to serve him in that way. So I know that he would want to serve you in the same way. And so if you can come for that program, we'll be very happy to try to serve you.
But I also hear your Guru Maharaj when I hear you preach, Prabhuji.
That's any idiotic car I have is trying to repeat what I've heard from him. But whether I've understood it or not, that's another thing.
We all do the same thing. Prabhupada said, be like a parrot. We should understand what we're saying. We have no other business. Saraswati Thakur also said, we're simply carriers of the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's our business. My assertion stands. I hear you, Guru Maharaj. Bus.
Okay, I won't argue with you, Prabhuji. I'll let you go to your phone call. Thank you very much, Sarvajit. I hope we see you then in a few days and we get a little time to spend together too.
Yeah, we should go to Ekachakra together. The new temple is extraordinary.
This visit, I'm not going to have time. We're only going to be there for like 5 days or something this time, but I'll take a rain check on that.
Okay, good. I'm going to hold you to it.
All right. I love that. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Please excuse me. Dandavat pranam, all devotees.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Let's see who else is here. Viren Prabhu, do you want to share any comments and reflections or anything from today? You have to turn your video on. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can you all hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Sure, Prabhu. There was a very deep class. I think I lost you in some parts. I'm going to have to listen again. But the one thing that stuck out to me, so I remember reading an edition of Krishna Katha Bindu, where Srila Govinda Maharaj, I think, mentioned, when it comes to the pastime of when they carve out the new deities of Lord Jagannath every 12 years, how to the Pujari that's in Jagannath Puri, in a dream, it's revealed to him where this log is. And when they approach this log, there's a cobra that's also there, that's guarding this log. And so when you're talking about that pastime about when Nityananda Prabhu went to, so it was at Naga Pasha Astra that you mentioned that Arjun released, right? And when Nityananda Prabhu went to, was it the Banka-Roy forest? So when you're mentioning about that cobra being present and explaining the reasons for being there and eating the people, I was just thinking about how the snake, which is also an Antishes, which is also Balaram and Nityananda Prabhu, is also guarding that log from which the deity form of Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra is carved.
That's a beautiful thought. I like that very much. And we can comment on that authoritatively that Lord Balaram is an Antishesh, and cobras are considered to be his expansions, his representatives. So certainly they're protecting that Dara. We printed a photo of one of those cobras in a previous magazine, Krishna Katha, you may remember. I didn't personally see the cobra, I'm happy to say. but I
Yes.
The photographer was there. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Anybody else here would like to share anything? Krishna Balaram Prabhu?
Prabhu, just to say it was a really nice class. I really appreciated the Sangha today. Yeah, that's all I can say today.
A little bit of a high subject matter. Sometimes these subject matters, they're very high, and sometimes we think, I can't, how can I enter into these? As Viren Prabhu said, I remember listening to my Guru Maharaj. I'm not trying to compare myself to my Guru Maharaj, but I remember listening to Guru Maharaj giving class and sometimes just thinking, oh my God. And I just felt like I was brain dead or something. Like it was just so far beyond me what was being spoken. And I was just gasping. But that helps us. As there's a story we've heard of one disciple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I tell this story sometimes, that he once was so sick that he couldn't eat anything. Anything that he would eat, it would vomit out, or it would come out the other end of his body, and even water. He couldn't take water. And so he was dying. How long can you live like that without water in it? Excuse me, take a throat lozenge. So some of the devotees took him to an Ayurvedic doctor. And the Ayurvedic doctor told them, give him ghee to eat. And the devotees, they protested. They said, he can't digest water. How is it you're going to give him ghee? Give him ghee. Okay, so they gave him ghee, and immediately he vomited it out. It came out all the different parts of his body. But the nature of ghee is some of it stuck, and it lined the walls of his stomach and enabled him to be able to start digesting the food. So in the same way, the example is given that sometimes we may hear some of these things, and I don't consider myself to be speaking these topics today. I'm just repeating different things from Shastra, and I'm trying to think about them in a logical way, but they don't belong to me. I'm also the listener in this situation. We're hearing something, and maybe it's something we can't digest, but still it may coat our stomach. So further things can come, and it's important we take that. Is that okay, Prabhuji? Hare Krishna. Nice to see you, Krishna Balan Prabhu. And then Rani, are you there? Would you like to share anything? You guys sit, you and Krishna Balan, you sit in separate rooms during the class? And you like send emails to each other?
No.
That's a relief.
I think I'm going to echo Krishna Balaram's sentiments that I need to eat some ghee and have a little stick at a time. But the one thing I wanted to say is, I mean, it was a phenomenal class and a lot went over my head, but just listening to you was very special, knowing that it's Lord Nityananda's appearance tomorrow. But right at the end of class, when I heard the interaction between yourself and I can't remember. Yeah. I thought that was also so instructive for us, just to see the humility with which you both interacted. And sometimes we actually need to see that to understand how we can try to be a bit humble, because it's not easy for me, Prabhu. So thank you for your example.
It's important. And you know, you have boys, you have children. Sometimes older devotees may treat your boys like their friend. And that's not, even sometimes you as parents may treat them like a friend. But they should always remember that this is my mother and this is my father, and these devotees, they're like friends. Sarvajit Prabhu is like my friend. But the same, and I treat him like a friend because he likes that. Just like sometimes you may like to be a friend of your boys. But we should always remember we shouldn't do Maryada Vyatikram, or the offense of disrespecting a senior person. We should be very, very careful about that. It's a very serious thing. So yeah, these topics, when you were speaking, Nandarani, I was also reflecting how, just like when we go to school, and maybe you have your first day of algebra. I never did good with algebra. I'm really bad with mathematics. And you go in the first, and they just kind of like blow your mind. They just say all these things, and you're thinking to yourself. I remember French class when I had French. Oh my God, it just seemed like so far beyond me. But the teachers consciously do that, because one important lesson for the student, aside from the different physical bits of information or things that the student should learn, one important lesson is just a simple fact that you don't know. You don't know this subject, and you should know something more. So that we find that principle there in all forms of teaching, no matter what you're studying. Because the student always has some pride very often. I know so many things. And then you sit down and you tell them, no, E equals MC squared. You understand? Oh, I know 5 + 5 = 10, but I don't know this E equals MC squared. And it blows their mind. And then they can begin to learn. So in a similar way, we should read these books of Prabhupada. We should hear these topics. And then we should have this understanding, wow, this is so far beyond me. Is that okay, Nandarani?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
We missed you guys. You, Krishna Balaram, and your boys, you should all come to Jagannath Puri sometime. We have a nice guest room upstairs for you. You guys come and stay, and we'd love to have you as our guest here sometime. But you got to stay for at least a few days or a week or something, okay?
We'll definitely be praying that by the end of the year we can make a trip, Prabhu.
I would love that. We would love that so much. So speaking of that, we have some other devotees here. I don't know who else might like to say something. We have a few other devotees who were with us just a few days ago, just up to yesterday, and they mercilessly means without mercy, they took their mercy away and they left us. And now we're just laying here and we're crying and we don't know what to do in separation from 𝗘𝘀адц and Banka-Roy and the other devotees. So let's see, oh my gosh. Banka-Roy, do you want to share anything, or Gour? Or
Don't make us cry, Phil.
Can we see your smiling face? There you are.
Can you see? I turned on my. You read and I are here.
Yeah, I'm just telling everybody else. It's just a fact that you guys have no mercy, and the proof is that you left us, and all the devotees here are so depressed in separation from you.
That's really sad.
Elena's here, and Ami Atma. Am I correct? They're agreeing with me too. Krishna Kun's agreeing, Bhakti-Rupa Bhu's agreeing, Seshadeva's agreeing. What do you say for yourself?
We're terrible people.
That's right. And there's only one 𝗃𝗁 you can do. You know what that is? To make
Please let
up
us know.
Okay, you have to come and visit us again.
Okay, as soon as we can.
That's the 𝗃𝗁. So any reflections on this katha today? You guys?
Well, Reed and I came a little late, but I was just thinking, for a little while I've been kind of thinking about this. In the Pariprashna, if the question and answer continued, I was thinking of posing some questions about Nityananda Prabhu, because I really like kind of picking your brain about worship of Gour Nitai, and maybe this isn't the most appropriate time to talk about that because it is Nityananda-katha tomorrow, but I always think about and perhaps now tonight we don't hear more about that because it's really in depth, but just like where traditionally the worship of Gour Nitai together came from, and you see like in a lot of your Gaudiya Math temples they don't establish a deity of Nityananda Prabhu, and how do we properly worship Lord Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu alongside Radha and Krishna deities? I've always been really interested in that, and there's like a lot I could say to kind of formulate my question, but
yeah, it's a big subject. I mean, first of all, if we want to try to understand our acharyas like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and what they're doing with the deities, there's a Bahiranga Karan and an Antaranga Karan. There's going to be an external and internal reason. And the Bahiranga Karan will be for Loka Siksha, to teach common people. They're opening these temples. We shouldn't think that Gurudev's opening these temples for us. But the temples, they're meant for Radha Krishna. But the temples, they're meant for preaching. And they want to present something which will help the common people to understand. So Nityananda Prabhu, as a Nanga Manjari, has some entrance into Gaur Leela. But we generally don't speak about a Nanga Manjari and Nityananda Prabhu. That's a very generally confidential subject matter. I fished out a few comments from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhakti-Vinod, but they're very few and far between comments. And it's not something that he spoke about in public. And in public, when you go to his temples, he had Radha Krishna and he had Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And why Gauranga Mahaprabhu and not Nityananda? Because for the common understanding, Gauranga Mahaprabhu is Radha Krishna. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to teach us that. And so he would always establish Gauranga Mahaprabhu with Radha Krishna. As far as I know, he never established Radha Krishna deities without Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Maybe someone could correct me, but at least in the vast majority of temples, if not all of them, Gauranga Mahaprabhu was established there also. But I'm not aware of any deities of Lord Nityananda Prabhu that he established. Sometimes Bhakti-Vinod worship Gaur Gadadhar, 𝗚𝘂𝗿-𝗶. And of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta established deities of the Panchatattva and Shiva Sangha and at Krishna at Mahaprabhu's Janmasthana and other places. I haven't read any comments from him explaining why that is. My humble understanding is what I just said, that because these temples were established as preaching bases, and even if you read Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's commentary on Chaitanya Bhagavat or Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's very, very simple. And we have several different commentaries on Chaitanya Bhagavat in our library, and some of them are actually much more esoteric. And someone might mistakenly think that, oh, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta didn't know so much, because his commentary is very simple. If you think like that, you're a great offender. He understood so many things, but he spoke for a purpose, and his purpose was to help common people to come to understand. And that was also Srila Prabhupada's purpose. And Prabhupada, obviously, he established Gour Nitai. Nityananda Prabhu was very, very merciful. Prabhupada didn't establish Radha Krishna very quickly. He established Radha Jagannath Baladev and Jagannath Baladev can be worshipped with Gour Nitai in public. And as we know, I can see Leela Purushottam Prabhu was percolating in the back of his head. Ayendra Prabhu, he made this comment that there's no harm in worshiping Gour Nitai with Radha Krishna if you have the conception that Nityananda Prabhu was in the mood of Ananga Manjari. How could there be any fault in that? But my understanding is that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and our Srila Prabhupada didn't speak about that in public because it's too much for them to deal with. But we should know some of these things. That's all I'd like to offer right now, Jagour. Is that okay?
Yeah, Prabhu, that's great. It's something I'd really like to hear a lot more about. I could kind of come up with more parts of the question to kind of, like
okay.
This in accordance with, how we're not supposed to worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi, and there's just a whole bunch I'd like to hear about in the future. So maybe we could talk about it more. Okay. Is it real quick? Is it kind of something like, I was thinking that, so you're saying as an Angamandri, Nityananda Prabhu has some entrance into those pastimes, but obviously as Balaram, at least according to as far as I understand, he doesn't. So I was thinking maybe that you can kind of draw a parallel to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where like in the mood of Radharani, he has entrance into the experiences that he has in the Gambhira, but just as Krishna, he doesn't. Is that fair to make that?
And as in Nitai, in his Balaram mood, then he's establishing everything. Balaram, he's the original guru, he's Adi Guru. So the original guru in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord Nityananda. And Mahaprabhu is telling him, now you go and you preach, you do this thing. So in that mood of Balaram, he's going and doing that. But at the same time, in the mood of Ananga Manjari, he's breaking Mahaprabhu's danda, and he's establishing something deeper too. Both things can be there, but at different times. Are you guys rested okay?
Yeah, we actually slept pretty well on the plastic couches in the airport. But then we came and got a nap, and everyone here is spoiling us. It's very embarrassing and humbling. They're cooking prasadam for us very nicely and making so many arrangements. Yeah, it's very embarrassing. Reed is staying in our Guru Maharaj's room that he used to stay in when he would stay at the temple. Wow. So yeah,
that's pretty good.
So we're supposed to be tomorrow.
Initiation is tomorrow?
What's that?
Initiation's tomorrow.
Yes, bro. Hopefully around 9 a.m. or something. I'm going to get a confirmation tonight about it.
Okay, let us know. We're eager to hear. It's not going to be Reed anymore.
No. Reed dies tomorrow.
And who else is here? Gour Prabhu is here. I saw Gour Nitai Prabhu here also at one point. Yeah, Gour Nitai Prabhu is also here. Anybody else would like to speak something? You don't all have to. It's kind of, as some devotees are saying, it's a bit esoteric stuff. Anybody want to raise your hand? Any reflections you want to share? Anything? Anybody here in the room? Our camera doesn't work, Jagour. because it's working with the computer, but because this is not my Zoom account, it doesn't show up. I guess that's the reason.
That's weird. When on my phone, it usually works. We gotta figure out how to make it work.
I've got that software. It's working separately, but it doesn't show up for my camera here. So that's why I'm all fuzzy. Okay, anybody else with any reflections, anything you want to share? Speak up or forever hold your peace. 𝗚𝘂𝗿 𝗹𝗶, I know you have something. Bunny type of why don't you go ahead?
Just this last statement of you, that how we established, how Srila Prabhupada established nice temples for preaching, but devotees could go much more deeper than what we in public programs we hear or we teach. So my reflection is that it's very important, principle. So the speakers should be really responsible. What they put together, how they present. Like tomorrow is Nityananda Prabhu's appearance day. So what pastimes we choose to explain and why that pastimes. And so this is so deep, and we need to prepare for that programs, either as a speaker or as a listener. And then we're much more safe not to confuse ourselves or others by some, not responsible explanations or questions, for example. So that would be my. Thank you very much. You mentioned that.
I like that so much. The word "not responsible" is very important. Being responsible means that we understand who we're speaking to and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, and what would be pleasing to Gurudev to speak at that time. And generally, when we speak about Nittai, we speak simple things for people to try to understand. And Nittai is a very, we stress this aspect of Guru. We don't speak about this Ananga Manjari stuff and all that. That's a big headache for even for a lot of devotees to try to digest. I'm only doing it here because all of you are very wonderful, sweet devotees. Hare Krishna. There's a question here from Gour Prabhu. I think he kind of jumped in at the end or something. Gour is staying in the wonderful part of New Zealand in the bottom of the world. And he's asking about, he'd like to hear something about Nittai leaving Ekachakra. We already spoke about that at length. And the sannyasi who took him away, according to my Guru Maharaj, was Vishwarup, was the older brother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who became a sannyasi. And I mentioned how that's a little controversial with some Vaishnavas. And our Fakir Mohan Prabhu asked me many years ago if I had any evidence to support that. And at that time I told him, no, my Guru Maharaj said it, it's all I know. And Fakir Mambu's reply was that it's not enough just to quote your guru. You have to quote some literature, some Shastra. Well, since then, I've come across the Bhaktamala of Nabhadas, which is a book which is appreciated by Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and explained that and how they appreciated it. And in there, he mentions that it was Vishwarup who came as a sannyasi and took Nittai away. And yeah, Jai Gour is actually Vishwarup. Gour Prabhu says, also we hear of how Hadai Pandit and Padmavati were devastated in separation, which was compounded by the realization that Nittai was an incarnation of Balaram. Would you expand on this? Yeah, and we also spoke something about that also, that Hadayoja, when that sannyasi begged Nittai from him, he remembered Maharaj Dasarath, the father of Ramachandra, and how Dasarath left. He donated Ram and Lakshman to Vishwamitra Muni, but he left his body in separation from him, implying, and I don't know any direct statements about it, but implying that Hadayoja, it seems, also left his body in separation from Nityananda Prabhu. Okay, anybody else with anything? Anybody, just raise your hand if you want to share something. Otherwise, Leela Purushottam, we have something?
Well, the Jai Gaur chant covered the whole topic because what else I could discuss than the topic of Ananga Manjari.
Jai Gaur, it's very bad. You took away Leela Purushottam Prabhu's question. You should be punished for that. And I suggest your punishment is that you should give some prasadam to Leela Purushottam Prabhu when you finally get a good chance to meet him. You got to give him some sweets or something.
I want to meet him. I like him very much.
If best at your place in Puri, that would be the best meeting place.
I think my punishment should be that I have to incite you to speak more about this in front of both of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Prasadam should also be there, I think, also.
Okay.
Actually, what I had in mind, a little more specific, but you also answer it at the end of your thoughts on Jai Gaura's topic, was that historically we can really see that one who really brought worship of Gour Nitai together up, even in the Gaudiya Vaishnava field or conception, was Srila Prabhupada. Before that, it wasn't so common actually. And and it's quite, I was just thinking about that reason why, because I'm not aware of Srila Prabhupada anywhere explaining the tattva of Nitai being simultaneously Ananga Manjari, and thus, because that was always question for me, like Heno Nitai bine bhai Radha Krishna Paitainai, how, like what was the connection? And then only when you get the information that Nitai represents or is Ananga Manjari also, then it starts to make sense. How is it connected to Madhurya Ras, to Radha Krishna Leela? So that was my doubt maybe, or why, if that was so strong feature of Srila Prabhupada introducing of worship of Gour Nitai, then why we didn't get that part of explanation to it also from Srila Prabhupada?
We'd have to ask Srila Prabhupada these kind of questions. What can we say in response to that? I don't know what Prabhupada would say, but we can only surmise. You're asking me something, and it's fair. We're speaking something. It's fair to ask a question like that. I'm not trying to suggest it's not fair, but then I can only answer according to, a bird can only fly according to its strength, how high it can go. I can only answer according to my understanding. What immediately came to my mind was Srila Prabhupada becoming very shy when he fell into ecstasy in Mayapur. And the devotees asked him, Prabhupada, what should we do when you fall into ecstasy like that? And Prabhupada, I get the feeling of Prabhupada just came like a turtle and just wanted to withdraw completely. He said, anyway, I don't do that very often. He just didn't want to talk about it at all. So there were certain things, and I saw that personally with 𝗏𝗏 Prabhu. Sometimes when people start speaking about the manjaris or anything in public, that happened once. There was one senior Gaudiya Math devotee who came as a guest at a program in ISKCON Bhubaneswar to glorify our Guru Maharaj after his disappearance. And in public, in front of a lot of non-devotees even, he started speaking about Manjari Bhav and different things. And I was sitting next to Fakir Mahaprabhu, and it was like somebody was putting electricity through his body. He was just twitching, and he was saying, he can't speak like that. It was very disturbing to him. So it's hard for us sometimes to understand because we want to be cool. Right? I want to say something which Leela Purushottam is really going to like. I got some far out things he's never heard before. We want to be cool. And we want to say something like that to blow people's minds and be the guy who really knows everything. But Srila Prabhupada's not like that. Our Guru Janas are not like that. They're not trying to show off. Rather, they have something according to our adhikar, they may say it. And again, I don't feel bad speaking about this topic in this Sangha here, but I would never speak about this in public form like that.
Yeah, that was. Sorry, Krishna Kun Mataji wanted to say.
You heard her. Speak real loud, Krishna Kun.
It's okay.
Okay, she says it's okay.
I was just thinking, wouldn't it make sense that Srila Prabhupada doesn't speak much about this aspect of Lord Nityananda as Ananga Manjari and Lord Balaram as Ananga Manjari at that time to that audience? For me, it makes complete sense.
Exactly. That's the point I'm making indirectly.
Just
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I got from your first answer to Jai Gaurachan, that it was just...
And that's perfectly acceptable. That's perfectly, it doesn't mean that Prabhupada's Vairasik, he doesn't know anything, or Prabhupada's a cowherd boy, or whatever. I don't like all this speculation. Let's realize what Prabhupada's Swarup is instead of arguing about it in a theoretical way. But it doesn't mean any of those things necessarily. It just means that Srila Prabhupada was an expert preacher, and he spoke certain things in a certain place and time.
Yeah, that's my lesson actually from it, that it strongly says to us how careful we must be to speak, if we speak to someone, to speak according to their adhikar, to not disturb them, and that's...
But in Ultadanga, on the day of Radhastami, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, in a small group of just disciples and friends, he spoke about Ananga Manjari, so I take that as some permission, and to at least repeat what he said. Okay, anybody else here? Amiyatmabu, you have something? Amiyatmabu is sitting here in front of me. And his wife's gonna translate. Mataji, speak loud so everybody can hear you.
It seems like somebody told us that it was 100%.
Oh, your question's already answered?
Thank you for moving.
There were several very deep points that you mentioned, which need more
digestion.
Especially, I liked to hear about your
My what?
research.
My research.
Your research. Because I have one friend of mine who also do some researches. And some other senior devotees. Who told me that there is no 100% confirmation that this sannyasi was Vishwarupa. They were hesitating. They were not sure. When I listened to Govinda lecture, he spoke that this sannyasi was Vishwarupa. I had no doubts in Govinda Maharaj's words. And I also understood that we have Guru's words, but we also need the confirmation from Shastra. I personally had no doubts, but I just need to have something from Shastra.
Yeah, that's why Fakirananda asked me that also.
Fakirananda kind of were pushing you to have this research.
Yeah, it disturbed me. So that's the best.
That now you have an answer for Fakirananda. I also didn't, like I said, we never found an answer, because I also had this question a few years ago, but I think we hadn't found it.
Yeah, I hadn't gone to Bhaktamala yet. And Bhaktamala, I mean, let's be frank too. Some people won't accept Bhaktamala as a pramana. But Bhaktamala says this, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur appreciated the book. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta appreciated the book. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, I could show you the Sajjan Toshna magazine. He said that this is one of the recommended books to read. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes it in his autobiography, and it's the local tradition in Ekachakra, so we can say that. It's controversial. I haven't gotten into it. I don't want to say names, but I know one sannyasi, it was a Gaudiya sannyasi, who was really like on fire against this and was really angry that, and how dare anybody say that it was Vishwarup who came and took Nityananda-Prabhu away. So I don't know. I don't want to argue. We're just presenting what we heard. And I hope it's good for our bhakti. Okay? All right. Anybody else with any final things? We're going to...
Could you please give some advices how we can pray tomorrow?
Okay, very good. Very good question. Some advice how we can pray to Nityananda. Well, first of all, we should pray to Nityananda. My Guru Maharaj, he used to comment, he used to say there's two secrets to Nabhajan. One is that you should pray to Nityananda Prabhu, and the other is you should say prayers for someone else. So my humble suggestion would be this wonderful verse from 𝗘𝘀𝗿-𝗹𝗶 Goswami, which I'll paste in here so everybody can recite this. This is a verse I recite every day. It's very, very important, I feel. This, to me, expresses the mood. Nityananda padadvanvam yesham hitkani kalaye tesham dasanu dasavam prasidantu sadaivahi. He's identifying, the author 𝗘𝘀𝗿-𝗹𝗶 Goswami is saying, I am. This is who I am. So this is my conception of myself. This is what my conception should be. I'm the das anu das. I'm the servant of who? I'm the servant of the devotees in whose hearts reside the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu. And he says, Prasidantu sadaivahi, may they always be pleased with me. So he's giving his own inner identification, and he's saying that I'm the servant of these persons, and he's giving his own behavior indirectly. Prasidantu sadaivahi, may they be pleased with me always. In other words, this is my prayer, not just to Nityananda Prabhu, but I'm praying to the devotees of Nityananda Prabhu, in whose hearts the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu are there. May they be pleased with me always. And how will they be pleased? Well, if I glorify Nityananda Prabhu. Because Nityananda Prabhu's his lotus feet are in their hearts, so they'll be very pleased with that. So in other words, as we often comment, that our bhajan is our Guru Seva. Tate Krishna Bhaji Kore Guru Sevan. That we're speaking this for the pleasure, for the benefit of Shri Guru. So let me paste this in, and I have an instruction from Leela Purushottam Prabhu that I should share that also on a WhatsApp group. So I'm sharing it right here. Bang, it's shared. So you got to copy it because we're going to turn this off in just a minute here. And when we turn it off, it's gone forever.
Can you share it in the question?
I'm gonna share it in a WhatsApp group also right now. Bang, it's shared there. It will be shared in 1 second. Okay, anybody has any final comments, corrections, questions? You can say that. Otherwise, we're going to
Madhavananda Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Can I ask a question? But I'm going to go back a few classes if you don't mind.
That's okay.
So, remember in one of the classes when you gave the discourse and you were chatting about how Indra, when he had sent those torrential rains, the Samvartaka clouds, that offense wasn't as, so I hope I'm using the correct word, but it wasn't as grave as the offense that Brahma had created or caused. And you said the reason why Indra's offense was more tolerable or pardonable was because it brought all the Vrajavasis, it brought them together with Krishna under Govardhan Hill. So it was that Milan. So I was trying to, the one thing that came to mind as well is, even though Brahma's offense may have been somewhat more grave, the fact that the Vrajavasis secretly also desired to have Krishna as their own. Brahma, by stealing the gopas and the cows and that, enabled the all the gopas, the gopis, and elderly gopis now to have Krishna as their own son in the form of their son. And I'm just trying to reconcile, how is that also still more grave than what Indra did in terms of, yeah.
What a great reflection. Thank you so much, 𝗏𝗏. I really appreciate that. We should think, as I said in the beginning, sometimes the questions are more important than the answers. We should be thoughtful, and you're being, you know, to substantiate what you're saying. I remember reading one commentary in the Bhagavatam that all the gopis are married, and they all got married in the same year. That was the year that Lord Brahma kidnapped the cows and cowherd boys. So they were all marrying Krishna directly. So that's pretty good service that Lord Brahma did. Lord Brahma did it unconsciously. You may say, well, Indra was unconscious, but Lord Brahma's thing was also unconscious. And it wasn't that Indra said, yeah, I'm going to bring all the Brijbasis together for a big party. he wasn't thinking like that at all. He wanted to mass murder everybody. In that sense, it was much worse than Lord Brahma. I just heard this comment. I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure it's from some commentaries in the Bhagavatam. Definitely heard some higher Vaishnavas comment like this. You're taking it a little further, and I like taking it a little further. And perhaps taking it a little further is why Krishna ultimately was pleased with Lord Brahma, and why he killed so many demons. Yet Krishna killed 𝗔𝗂𝗃𝗃, because according to Rupa Goswami and Lita Madhav, 𝗔𝗂𝗃𝗃 grabbed a hold of Radharani's hair and was taking her away. Krishna killed 𝗏𝑇sāsura because 𝗏𝑇sāsura was going to attack the boys. Krishna doesn't tolerate it when someone attacks his devotees. He killed Bakasura because Bakasura was going to attack the boys. He killed Aghasura because Aghasura would swallow the boys and killed them. Krishna doesn't tolerate that. But Krishna tolerated with Lord Brahma. But that offense, in one sense, directly, because there's two things, Anvaya Vyatireka Bhyam Yat Shat Sarvata Sarvada. There's two things that we understand the Bhagavatam directly and indirectly. And directly, it was bringing about separation, which ultimately for Gaudiya Vaishnavas also might be another kind of mercy too. That's another topic. But we don't see so much feelings of separation in that particular pastime, except Krishna himself feeling separation from the boys, perhaps. And he wasn't. That's also another subject matter I won't go into. But indirectly, is what you're saying is indirect. And that Krishna, the Lord Brahma, actually brought about union for everybody and fulfilled the desires of all the Brijbasis to have Krishna. But it was an indirect thing. And Lord Brahma didn't actually do that. Lord Brahma took everybody away. It was Krishna who expanded himself, because he knew that the desire of the gopis to marry, he knew the desire of the cows to have Krishna as their calf, and the desire of all the ladies in Braj to have Krishna as their son. Whereas Indra, what did he do? Directly, he brought about union. And there was a big party underneath Govardhan Hill. And of course, he wasn't also. Those are my reflections on that. Krishna Kuni has something? What?
To bring them together. Indra's motivation.
Oh yeah, I mentioned that. Indra's motivation was not to bring them together. But directly, he brought them together. That was a direct result. The direct result of Lord Brahma's saying was separation. And that also is our Gaudiya Vaishnava line. Radha Krishna Pranamo Yugala Kishore Jivane Marani Gati Anahi More. Our line is that's the ultimate service, is to bring Radha and Krishna together, to bring about union. So Indra did a good job. All right.
Okay.
And Krishna Kuni says that maybe is that one of the reasons why Indra Vyakalam Lokam Vidyanti Yuge. I don't know. I haven't read that. Nila Purushottam Prabhu comments that I believe it belongs to Srila Vishnu 𝗏𝗏𝗃 Thakur Shatadarshan Tika. I think this was in regards to the marriage of all the gopis. Is that right? Thumbs up.
Yeah, and that comparison with Brahma's offense and to Indra's offense. I have it connected with that, but I can't say which purport exactly it is, but I have it connected to Vishwanath commentary.
Okay, so I want to take blessings from everybody to go because we, Krishna and I, both have quite a few rounds left to chant. We need to go. So thank you all very much. And Sri Nityananda, hey,
Jai.
okay.
Jai.
Jai.
Sorry.